So there are two types of IONMs, is non-provocative and provocative, which we have seen. And the anesthesia is very important. And there is, the reason I put this slide is there's a lot of advances that's coming up in the drugs that are being used during anesthesia. So we start off with, total intravenous. You give induction, propofol, and a muscle relaxant. And then after intubation, you maintain with TIVA. And then at the end, you start, and you use a lot of very quick anesthesia, because sometimes the problem is, after your surgery, you're waiting for 1 hour after a major deformity correction or something for your patient to wake up, and there's a lot of panic. Sometimes you have to go and extubate your patients in the ICU. So the drugs are also changing constantly in IONM. So optimizing condition is during anesthesia so important to maintain stable. You can't change between TIVA and gas. You need an experienced anesthesiologist as much as a neurophysiologist, and also to maintain a normothermia, normal blood pressure, hemoglobin and oxygen. And you have these monitors which you take a base, and you're looking at really latency and amplitude for SSCP. And you are really looking at, we've seen the significance. Dr. Tanaka explained about 50% or 60%. What is the latency? So things are also constantly changing in terms of what is the threshold value. MEPs, again, the wake-up test is gone a bit traditional anymore. I have not done a wake-up test in a very long time because reasonably you can rely on your neuromonitoring. And the sensitivity here for MEPs really, as I was discussing in the last discussion, is the cord. MEPs are more sensitive for cord than for the roots. So cord perfusion, any neurological damage, or it can be also due to anesthetic change. And you can see even just a drop in your hypotension, you can have changes significantly in your MEPs. So there's four modalities of how they differentiate. Either it's an all or none phenomena. If you completely lose everything, then that's very significant. Or you have a drop in the amplitude or the threshold, or the morphology of your waves itself, because that's why it's important you have a neurophysiologist when you're doing very complex cases, rather than a technician who really is just picking up something important. D waves are very important, and there's more emphasis on D waves, especially when you're doing intramedullary tumors, and these are epidural catheters that are placed beyond your tumor place, because it directly monitors your corticospinal tract at the distal end. So D waves and I waves are, again, there are indirect waves and direct waves. D stands for direct waves. So there's, again, here there's a drop more than 50% amplitude. It is significant. Now, EMGs have been spoken extensively. There's either the continuous free run or the triggered EMG, and these are also very useful, especially when we're looking in MIS surgery for K-wires and pedicle screws. So, finding your pedicle screw, even if there's a very slight breach, as you increase your amplitude, you're able to pick up if there's just a breach of your medial pedicle rather than a complete breach. So you have to take a call whether you want to replace the screw, you want to reprobe again. So these EMGs are very important. We've seen the reasons why we get, reasons, and the alert is changing, but this is what is generally used, 50% of amplitude SSCP and 80% drop of MEPs. But there's more research needs to be done. And what we were talking about, the specificity and sensitivity. So it changes between the cervical and lumbar. This is the answer to the question that Murli and the others were discussing. If you look at cervical spine surgery, MEP, the sensitivity is 100. Well, but the sensitivity is slightly, and sensitivity is also very good. Whereas if you look at in lumbar, MEPs are not really very significantly useful. It is more of SEPs and EMGs which are very significant, sensitivity of over 100%, because you're dealing with rootlets. So you want to stimulate the roots rather than the cord. So a multimodal treatment has, there's a paper recently published which shows that there is, cost effective as well in terms of complications. So in MIS, we are doing through small tubes, endoscopes, and so your access to seeing neural structures is limited, even doing tumors through tubes. So you can do either K-wire stimulation, you can do stimulation of your pedicle. We've already seen the approaches for the lateral and intradural tumors in endoscope, and I'll just give you a few of these. So in deformity, really, what is standard that's being used for deformity is SSCP, MEP, and EMG. So this is what is used for deformity surgery, because they are able to predict the cord level as well as at your root level, and also the SECP as a dorsal column. When it comes to decompression, your positioning doesn't really matter, whereas your surgery, again, it depends on which part you're decompressing, and your primary problem is your nerve root as well as your cord in decompression. And so here, MEP really does not really matter, but definitely a good SSEP and triggered or continuous EMGs are very useful, especially in the lumbar spine. But if you're doing it in the thoracic or the cervical, then MEP also becomes significantly useful. If you're doing an ACDF, most of us don't use, I don't use for a standard ACF, but if you have a calcified, disc, or if you're doing anything else, here again, MEP, SSEP, and EMGs are useful. In tumor surgery, induction, the risk is low. With positioning, the risk is low, but surgery is very high. And in these cases, you probably would want to use D waves. So when you're opening the dura, when you're doing a myelotomy, when you're doing a midline incision, again, there are lots of advances that are coming up in how you can monitor the dorsal column itself. You can actually map the dorsal column. And when you're removing these tumors, you can do in pediatrics as well. Less than 1 year is not very useful, but children older can be significantly useful. So even when you're doing your myelotomy, you can use your SSEPs to see where you're opening and whether you're in the midline, because sometimes, especially where I do a lot of DRES lesionings where your cord is atrophied on the side where you have avulsions and you cannot really see your cord properly. You cannot identify your dorsal root entry zones. So in these cases, mapping the dorsal column really helps. So these are some advances coming. And also some people don't use BIS monitors. In our hospital for deformity in tumors, we use BIS monitor. It's again a form of neuromonitoring. So this gives you the depth of anesthesia, because when you're actually on the brain or on a spinal cord operating on your tumor, you don't want your patient to wake up or cough. At the same, when it comes with your deformity, when you're in a critical stage where you're doing a deformity correction or something, you don't want your patient. So it's also useful to use BIS monitor to look at the depth of anesthesia. So here you have an intradural tumor where we use D waves, an epidural stimulator, and sometimes you may lose your MEPs, but if your D waves are well, you have the double wave, you are able to identify your D wave. In those cases, you can see that probe there, which is the D wave, which is passed distally. And the D wave was positive, so we just woke up the patient. We were very confident this patient will wake up. And he did wake up, and he did have any neurological deficit in his legs, though we lost all MEPs. So again, dorsal root. So this probe that you're seeing down is still in a research phase, where you're actually seeing that you can map the dorsal column. So you can map with electrodes, either unilateral electrodes or bilateral electrodes. And when you use these bilateral electrodes, you can actually find out which is the midline, which is the dorsal spine. And so you can actually help you with opening the spinal cord in the midline. So this is something that recently I saw a presentation where there's a lot of research going on with opening the spinal cord in intradural procedures. K-wire stimulation. You can choose these muscle groups and you can actually do K-wire stimulation, which is a triggered EMG, and this will show you, here's a case where you place in a K-wire, you found that you lost some of these monitoring, and then you remove the K-wire and replace it. And also pedicle screw, similar to K-wire technique, you can do a triggered EMG through the pedicle screw, you can probe it, and you can actually find, even if there's a very slight breach, you can still see the reduce in amplitude. If it's less than 10, it is significant. If it's less than 5, it's definitely you've breached the pedicle. So that is one way of finding out. And the various thresholds here, as you can see, the last one, if it's less than 3 milliamps, then you definitely have to revise that screw. In endoscopy as well, more and more people are using these, especially either during, you can use the stimulate in continuous running EMG, or you can use SSCPs. MEPs really don't have value in the lumbar spine. Lateral approaches, we've seen close proximity to the lumbar plexus. EMGs, you can use triggered EMG, free running EMG, SSCP. I'll skip these slides, but the advantage really is that you prevent nerve injury and prevent any neurological deficit. But the limitations are that it is not going to detect any sensory nerve root problems. So, and it's also going to have you're going to miss any ischemic changes, slow ischemic changes, which your EMG is not going to pick up. So it's very important that you understand the limitations of these. In OLIF, again, it's not widely used because you want to prevent going through the plexus, but still people are using in OLIF as well. There's some papers. Innovations, a lot of innovations coming up in IONM, which is about the stimulators, the electrodes and probes are becoming advanced. How you acquire your signal without being able to use this, and these signals are actually also AI detectable. Very user interfaces are there, and there's something called trans-abdominal, just take 10 seconds, trans-abdominal monitoring, where you actually place an electrode in the abdomen and in the back. And this is a continuous stimulation which happens. It's more sensitive than using the one which you can actually place through the lumbar plexus. So this can show you during positioning, while using your retractor, while placing these things. I've never seen one, but something in the literature I found. It has its limitations as well, but it is much better than a triggered EMG. And also femoral nerve, which is femoral nerve neurostimulation for using SSEP and MEP. So in your spine theater, you have all these gadgets and they need to talk together, and Invasive has come up with an interface where you can actually see in one single monitor everything. And I think that's going to be the future, where you're able to see things more precisely. And also now the Google lens is being used, a recent paper published where we do selective dorsal rhizotomy. So when you're doing a selective dorsal rhizotomy for spasticity, you have to continuously sit with your neurophysiologist, and every nerve you cut, you need to be able to detect what it is. So you have to keep turning. So you probably be turning about 100 times to see the monitor or talk to your neurophysiologist. So this was actually published recently where they've used a Google lens. So in conclusion, a multimodal treatment is essential, not single use. Obviously, you need to be familiarized the limitations, and also a good neurophysiologist is very essential. Thank you.